Welcome to the premiere episode of Conceptually Speaking. Hello, all you folks out there. Welcome back to those of you who are returning, and to those new folks there. Stick with us. Hopefully you'll find something entertaining or informative.
If you're one of our Battletech fans, sorry, this might not be a Battletech video. I don't know yet. This is Bobby's idea here, so.
Yeah, okay, so these are going to kind of be a catch-all where we discuss like the kind of the mechanics of how certain things work. Like I myself am a tremendous movie fan.
We're both cinephiles.
Yeah. Now, whatever it's worth, by that I mean I've watched a lot of movies. I'm not going to sit here and claim that like I'm a massive fan of like Kurosawa or, well, no, I will say I'm a Stanley Kubrick fan. I do like his movies. And with the Kurosawa thing, it's a matter of I haven't seen his movies. Right. I hear they're spectacular, and they definitely influence all kinds of Western movies, like the West, not Westerns. Although The Seventh Samurai is basically, what's the Western? Seven something. They just remade it recently.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so we're going to keep moving. I'm just going to pretend like I actually made a point there. So,
Magnificent Seven.
Magnificent Seven, there we go.
Magnificent Seven is just a remake of Seven Samurai.
Right. And Lucas has mentioned that that Kurosawa's movies were partial inspiration for some of the aspects of Star Wars. Tarantino mentions them a lot. But it's a matter of I just haven't watched the movies. I'm sure they are every bit as good as they say they are. I am not one of those people that's too good to watch movies that are older than him. Like, I do like Humphrey Bogart movies from the 30s. Like, they're good. You know, The Wizard of Oz.
The Maltese Falcon is a good movie.
Maltese Falcon is an excellent movie. Also, for you D&D fans out there, definitely the kind of movie you can turn into a side quest in a campaign. Like, for sure. Might even do a video on it someday. You never know. Keep an eye out. So, and like I mentioned, I do like Kubrick movies, you know, but I also watch an awful lot of what is absolute trash, like, because some of it is entertaining. Like, I like horror movies, and as a horror fan, most of the horror genre is garbage. Like,
Hellraiser peaked with Hellraiser. Everything after that started to go downhill. It's just how quickly did it go downhill?
Yeah, 2 had promise.
Yes. 2 started okay, and just went barely down. And then after 2, it's like a cliff that never ended.
I get it. I slightly disagree with you here. I think 3 is still watchable. 4 had some interesting ideas.
You're going to say Bloodlines is a good one, aren't you?
That's 4, yeah. I think it's okay. I don't think it's great. It's not as good as the first 2. But once you get past that, like 5, 6, 7, and 8, but I think they may as well filmed all at once, as near as I can tell. They're rough. They're watchable. They're not as bad as, say,
The Room,
some random movie that the Asylum made for the Sci-Fi Channel. But
no, I'm saying they're not as bad as The Room, straight up.
No, nothing's as bad as The Room.
Sorry, I'm the only one of the 2 of us that has watched that movie in its entirety.
I think I've actually seen the whole thing now, just not like cohesively in one sitting. Like, they've printed on April Fool's Day on Cartoon Network before, like for 24 hours. I'm sure like the bits and pieces wedged together make the whole movie. Or I could just watch my copy of it that I convinced him to watch.
Yeah.
I still don't know how I got that to happen, but so anyway.
I didn't know what I was in for, folks.
So, anyways, that's why I haven't. No, you did watch Halloween 3 finally, didn't you?
Yes.
Yes. Speaking of, like, things that went off the rails. So anyway, part of the idea for this, well, the major idea, is we're going to discuss things like that don't quite fit in some of our other areas, or we're talking to them at a concept level. So as it relates to movies, these would be things like, do movies actually need an antagonist? Short answer is yes.
Do they need a protagonist? Yes.
Actually, sorry, I totally screwed that up. You need a protagonist. I'm not entirely certain you need an antagonist. Because, I mean, you could be fighting nature or something, you know.
What? Swamp Thing?
Well, no, he was the protagonist, first of all. But second of all, no, I mean like Armageddon, where you're fighting the asteroid. You know,
Oh.
the asteroid isn't a character; it's a thing, it's a force of nature.
Yeah, I can see that.
So you know, but things like that, like
Well, also high magic versus low magic.
yeah, and it's not just going to apply to movies. Like it's also going to be like talking about game concepts, and how certain games compare to each other. Like Chad mentioned, the concept of high magic versus low magic, which comes into fantasy and fantasy role-playing games. Sci-fi, hard sci-fi versus not hard sci-fi. I don't know if they call it soft sci-fi,
I don't know.
or if they just don't call it hard sci-fi.
I know when it's with magic, it's hard magic and soft magic.
Yeah. So, and for those of you that don't know, the difference is hard sci-fi follows the rules of science as we understand it right now, like to the letter. The other end is Star Wars, where things work because George Lucas says they work.
What is it? Is it it's not the Abyss? No. So there was a sci-fi show here recently that was hard sci-fi.
Couldn't say. The closest thing I remember seeing to it, and this is before I was born, is 2001.
Yeah.
And that's the parts involving space travel, not the monolith, because the monolith may as well be magic.
Yes.
So, and that's a problem you kind of run into there. That's the kinds of things that we're going to be discussing.
And for our first video here, what is our concept, Bobby?
Well, let's see. For the first video, we could talk about the magic thing, but I think we should actually talk about board games, because that's another passion of mine, and I have suckered Chad into it occasionally.
More than occasionally. I have a stack of my own video or board games that are still cellophane wrapped.
And since we are going to be talking about them eventually, there's several important distinctions between types that we should probably go ahead and cover here. So let's have our main video here. Let's start with Euro-style games versus American board games. Now, American board games, you all know them. Well, those of you in the United States all know them. Monopoly, Life, you know, Trouble, Hungry Hungry Hippos, you know, games like that.
Mainly competitive.
Yes, and we will stick with Monopoly because it is the uber example, and it is an absolutely terrible board
Would
game.
Risk be an American style board game?
I believe it is, even though it's not 100% like in there, but it is an American game, and it's definitely an American style game, and that it's heavily combative, overly long unnecessarily, you know, just things like that. So some things, like I said, let's stick with Monopoly. Okay, so in Monopoly, for those fortunate few among you who have never played, the goal is to be the last person standing, and you can have 4 players, and you buy properties around. You've got a square board with properties around the outside, and you buy them, and as other players land on them, they have to pay you rent, and if they're out of money, they have to mortgage their properties to try to get the money, or they're out of the game if they can't.
Yep.
And so the goal is to be the last person standing. Now, the reason this is a terrible game, and there's actually a little bit of a backstory to this, the person who created the game actually created 2 games. Monopoly is supposed to exemplify capitalism
At its worst.
at its worst. It is meant to be a bad game. It is meant to show you what the creator thought was like the exploitative side of capitalism, and to show you that it's nothing but driven by greed. The other game they built, which I don't know what the actual title of it was, and I don't know if there's any surviving copies or anything. That's something I should really look into because I'd be curious about it, just to see how it actually plays.
Yeah.
Was meant to extol the virtues of socialism. Well, this being a capitalist society, Monopoly was popular. The other is somewhere in the ash heap of history. So, a popular game, which is about just completely crushing your opponents, is what took off, 80 years ago probably?
Something like that.
Yeah. So, the big problem is that, and this exemplifies American board games, is that it's head-to-head combative. There's one path to victory, and one person is clearly going to win. And at a certain point in the game, you can be certain that it'll either be one person or maybe down to two people. And there will come a point in the game where you start knocking other players out of the game. Well, depending on why you play games, because there's two primary reasons. There's to have a good time, and there's to win. These are not mutually exclusive, but you can do the first one without doing the second one.
Yep.
And despite what everyone that plays against me, my favorite board game, thinks, I actually lose that game roughly half the time that I play, and I enjoy playing the game, otherwise I would stop. So I can only beat people like Chad and Jim and some other people on a consistent basis. That's a bit of a tender subject. So anyway, so what happens is, in a typical game of Monopoly, after some ungodly amount of time, 2 of the 4 players are out of the game, and the other 2 are just slowly grinding away at each other, while the other 2 are debating what to do for the rest of the evening. That's bad, because they're no longer engaged. They're off doing their own thing. They've started watching a movie or something, or they're playing a much better game, possibly.
Possibly Lords of Waterdeep.
While these 2 are trying to just crush each other. And so it really brings out some bad feelings in people too. Like, I'd always heard about the table being flipped over. It finally actually happened to me recently, whenever I stupidly agreed to play the game again. But that's a story for another time. So anyway, that's the kind of things that typify an American board game. There's one path to victory. There's a heavy reliance on chance. It's difficult to strategize, and a lot of it's luck. And for whatever it's worth with Monopoly, there are actually strategies, but you have to luck into landing on the right spots. But mathematically, there's a few spots that you absolutely should buy. I believe it's the orange properties, unless I'm mistaken. It's the orange or the red. I don't remember which. But a little pro tip for those of you still playing the game. Good luck. So
we might just guaranteed someone's entrance into the World Monopoly Championships.
Maybe. Again, good luck. And share your prizes if you do win because of us. So, we're a small channel, we can use the help.
Yes.
So
donations are welcome.
So that's, like I said, that's the uber example of an American board game. Now, if you look at European style board games, they're designed to keep everyone engaged throughout the game. And they do to varying degrees of success, because there is still that point where you can probably guess who's going to win. But it's usually much closer to the end of the game. And European style board games have many avenues of scoring points, many avenues of victory. They typically have bizarre conditions for who goes first. Like my favorite game, it's an American game, but it's a Euro style game.
Lords of Waterdeep.
It's called Lords of Waterdeep. And yes, it is a reference to the Forgotten Realms setting. It's a Dungeons and Dragons board game, but wholly divorced from any kind of role playing. It's the theme, the backdrop. And in that game, there's all kinds of different ways to accumulate points. Plus, there's a hidden mechanic that you don't reveal until the end of the game, which can severely swing the points. And so that is up in the air until the end, who's going to win. So that one also, there are a set number of rounds and a set number of turns because of your pieces. That's one of the other features you typically see in European style board games. They have a built-in, like, this will cause the end of the game type thing in them. Not just when someone finally wins. It's no, this triggers an end game. Now sometimes this is the end of the game. And sometimes it's once these conditions are met, the end game begins, and then you follow, you do X, Y, Z, which is usually like everyone else gets one more turn or something. But like Carcassonne is a Euro style game, and with that it's a matter of, well, once you're out of tiles, that's the end of the game. Lords of Waterdeep, it's once everyone has played their final pieces in the final round, that's the end of the game.
And no one's left in Waterdeep Harbor.
Right. And
we'll hopefully in the future have a video of us playing Lords of Waterdeep.
Yes, it will probably be the longest video on the channel.
Maybe.
The box says, I believe, 1 to 1.5 hours. Lies. All lies. Unless you actually play the game properly.
We never do.
No, that particular game, the more players you have, the less meeples everyone gets to use.
But we feel we should use all the meeples all the time.
Yes, maximum options. So the Europeans probably had it right. No, sorry, Americans copied the Europeans, probably had it right on that one because the game is much shorter if you have fewer meeples. That's another little thing, a little terminology for modern games. Meeples are the little people-shaped things. They're not all people anymore. They're all kinds of shapes, but they start off as people-shaped. And a lot of... actually, that's another big difference. Is most European-style games, a lot of them have wooden components.
Yep.
As opposed to plastic and metal. So they have more of a... You can at least pretend to yourself that they're handcrafted.
They have an almost rustic feel.
Yeah. And that's another big thing. And also, another feature that you see in Euro-style games that you don't really see in American games is the idea of the cooperative board game, where you collectively either you all win or you all lose, and you're playing against the system in the game, not against each other.
That's...
Pandemic is a real good example of that.
Yeah.
And it has a lot of variants where they use similar mechanics. Like there's one for the Call of Cthulhu and one for Ancient Rome, and a bunch of different options. Now, some of these games are available at some places like Walmart and Target. What used to be like the intro game for this is Settlers of Catan. And I personally still think there's nothing wrong with the game, but other people feel there's better options now because the market has really opened up. Because Settlers does have the randomness flaw. Now, the designers accepted this and implemented a way around it if you want to. But the way it works is the beginning of each player's move, they have to roll 2 dice, and that determines production for everybody based on numbers and everything. So they introduced a deck of cards that one pass through the deck of cards, every possible die roll on 2 sets of 2 d6s will come up. And some of them have other like little random conditions that also flare up whenever they hit. So you will see all the dice, all the numbers hit at some point if you go that way. Whereas the other, you're at the whims of probability, which means that you should see 6, 7, and 8 more than anything. But sometimes you don't. Like I've seen games of that where 2s and 3s ruled the day,
Yeah.
and it's very frustrating.
We've played a game where there was not a single 7 roll.
Yeah. So.
Like, that was the one game where I never had more than, 7 cards in my hand, though.
Yeah. So, now with sellers, there are ways to slowly try to dig yourself out of the hole you could be in if the dice aren't going your way. But you're probably not going to catch up to the people that are positioned to take advantage of it.
Yep.
Which again is random though, because whenever you start the game, you're not sitting there thinking to yourself, I'm going to strategize around 3 and 4. You know, you're like, no, you're doing what everyone else is doing. You're strategizing around 6 and 8. 7, the robber goes. There's no 7s on the board. So it's 6 and 8 is what you're looking for, and then 5 and 9, and then.
Or you
4
strategize on monopolizing one specific type of resource.
Right. So, but the key is there are potential other strategies as long as probability eventually shifts away from what it's doing. But again, that's one of the flaws in the game, that people feel that it's not the best intro anymore. I still think it's a good one if people are only used to American style board games, because it introduces a lot of the concepts. Like it's not a worker placement game, but it's
not a worker placement game, but you still place pieces.
Yeah, it introduces you to some concepts that will come in handy in worker placement games, which that's another thing, is a lot of European style games are what they call worker placement games, where you have your meeples, you have options of where to go to generate resources, to buy things, whatever, and it's going to cost you one of your guys to go there to do that this round, and typically that means someone else can't go there. So choice matters. So you're replacing randomness of dice with finite choices, typically.
Yep.
And so the games feel like you're a lot more in control. But you're also at the whims of what are the other players doing. Maybe you're going after the same thing as Chad's going after. Well, then whoever goes first is going to have the first crack at that. And that's another thing, is typically
when we play Lords of Waterdeep, the first turn's usually mine.
Well, typically a lot of these games also have the means between rounds to switch who's going first. Now, some of them just do it automatically. But others have a means to actually, like one of those spots is, I'll go first next round.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing you run into. Whereas with Monopoly, it's just round and round you go, unless you're in jail. Although there you still get the chance to try to get out of jail, so you still technically have kind of a turn.
Best way to beat Monopoly, be the banker.
Yeah. Hope people don't know that you're taking extra cash out of there.
Or, the fact that even if you can't buy anything anymore, you're the only one they can go through to exchange money and get change and have to auction off their properties.
Yeah, that's as much as I'm belittling Monopoly. A major reason that it's such a terrible game, aside from the fact that it's designed to be a terrible game, is people don't actually play by the rules because no one reads the rules to Monopoly. They were taught how to play the game by someone else.
Yeah.
And that someone else also didn't read the rules. They were taught by someone else. And there's a handful of important rules that nobody knows, that they don't implement.
You mean like the free space isn't supposed to get you money?
Yes, that is completely counterproductive to the entire game, because the whole game is about resource depletion. If the free space is putting more resources into the game, it's just prolonging the inevitable. You're giving someone, you're either helping someone stay in the game longer, or you're helping the first player crush everyone else. The free space equals money. I know a lot of people do that. No, stop.
It's just a spot you can land. It's not going to cost you money.
Right. The other is, if you land on a property and it's available, and you don't buy it, it goes up for auction among the other players. Like, the board will get gobbled up much faster that way. And so you get down to the crushing people with rent much faster. So, yeah. Which is also, between little things like that and mistakes I have made, that's why I advise everyone that plays games with me to read the rules themselves.
We don't.
They don't. And then I tell them afterwards whenever something goes wrong that I told them to read them.
We don't care. Generally, we're in it for the fun of playing a game with a friend.
Yeah, well...
We're not in it to win like other people.
You weren't there for the Hero Clicks debacle, so... Like, there was something that made absolutely perfect sense to me, thanks to a chain of how certain things worked, plus logic, but that was not how they actually worked. And my other friend and I, Chris, found out the hard way that I was wrong in the first or second tournament we went to. So, yeah, that's why I advise people to read the rules. But yeah, so let's see. Oh, another thing that European style games typically have, at least that I've noticed. And now these are American games that are Euro style games. Typically in the back of the rule book, they will actually have like things that they know are tricky interactions, and they will explain how they're supposed to work. Using specific, like in Lords of Waterdeep, there's a handful of cards and buildings that they know there's going to be questions, and so they explain the sequence you have to do things. Well, suppose I have this card and this card, here's what happens, and that's very handy. American games, look on the internet, someone's figured it out, so. Yeah, so that's a lot of the differences. Now, they're starting to really blur the lines because American companies are making Euro-style games. So at a certain point, you have to wonder what you actually call that, because they're American companies making Euro-style games. So at some point, they do become the larger part of the market, in which case I think we can call them American games, but...
I think they'll still end up being Euro-style games, though.
Probably to differentiate, because Monopoly's not going anywhere, unfortunately.
No.
It's too culturally ingrained somehow.
There was a sort of version of Monopoly that we played that was interesting. It was more styled like a European game. The garden game.
Oh, good Lord.
The reaction, people, the reaction.
Our friend Jimmy has a game that he bought at a yard sale that is about gardening.
You would think that would mean it's
a nice, simple little game.
Relaxing, fun.
No. This is the most devastatingly hardcore game I've ever played.
Yep. Your garden has aphids. Lose half of it.
As you work your way around the board, you pray to land on the spot that says, just stop here, don't do anything else.
Or you pray to draw the card that says, it's a sunny day, nothing happens.
Yes. You're hoping for stagnation. You're hoping for nothing to happen, because almost everything that can happen is bad.
You got on a spot, you draw a card. Oh, you stepped on a rake, you go to the hospital for the day. Lose this.
Yeah. Oh, your shed exploded. You're in the hospital. Lose all your plants. Oh, winter hit. Lose all your plants.
Random hailstorm. Lose half your plants.
Yeah. It's bad.
Then you have the ones like that where it's like you lose half your plants. Move forward 2 squares. Draw another card. You lose half your cards again.
Yeah.
Move forward 3 squares. You lost all your seeds.
Yeah. So we're assuming that's a European game.
Yeah.
So that's the occasional dark side of Euro gaming. I think that's one where a European designer looked at American games like, we can do that.
I mean, it did have an element of cooperation in it as well, though.
All of us collectively praying.
That and the fact that towards the end, when Jimmy was in the lead, we're like, here's this card, take it. Get your garden finished.
Yeah. So,
It also, because it had the certain conditions you had to meet before it entered the end game, remember?
yeah. So those are some of the major differences. Like I said, overall, it comes down to there are some of them that are totally cooperative. There are some that are semi-cooperative. That would be like terraforming Mars, where the overall goal is the same for everybody. You're all working towards it. You just want to be the one that put in the most effort and got the most money.
Yep.
Or
because you have to hit a certain point of terraformation on it before you're at the end game, and everyone gets one more turn, I think.
Yeah.
And then whoever has the most points after that is the winner.
Yeah. So there's a lot more to this, and there's more depth to the games. Like I said, there's the multiple paths to victory, multiple ways to earn points. Usually something doesn't come up till the end of the game that can really swing the points, so that you don't really know who's actually in the lead.
For Lords of Waterdeep, that would be your Hidden Lord card.
Yeah.
We've taken here recently to playing with 2 Hidden Lord cards.
Yeah, if we ever actually do a playthrough video, I'm probably going to do like a 10-minute segment at the beginning to explain all the rules that we've changed.
Yeah.
To fit our play style.
The fact we like a lot of choices and a lot of choices.
Yeah. So, anyway, so if you're interested, like I said, Settlers of Catan, I firmly believe it's still a decent gateway game.
It is.
If you can find a copy of it, because it's not out of print. I still know game stores have it. Lords of Waterdeep is excellent. There's 2 expansions, but they're in the same box. I feel the game there's far more depth with the expansions.
Yes, there is.
That's me, but
because one of them gives you a risk reward system.
Yeah, they add more spaces, more Lord cards, more missions, and it just overall it adds more. Not a whole lot more complexity to the game, but more options. I love options.
Also more players.
Yes, also more players.
Because base game's 4 players, right?
It's 4 or 5.
And then each expansion introduces a new player option.
Yeah. Terraforming Mars is also good. Yeah, both those. Well, Terraforming Mars isn't really a worker placement game. It's cards and resource management.
Yeah.
So, but it is also a good game if you want more of like a sci-fi look on things. Then Carcassonne, like I said, is also good. That's a combination of tile placement and figure placement.
And you're pretty much cooperatively building a puzzle that's going to give you points based on certain things.
Yeah. And then if you want the all or nothing, like we either all win or we all lose, Pandemic is the game to go with.
The one time we tried playing it,
word of advice:
make sure you know how to shuffle the cards.
Make sure that you're very clear on how you have to shuffle the cards, because depending on the level, you can actually adjust how hard you want the game to be. And one of the things is there are Pandemic cards.
I somehow made it hardcore.
That go into the deck. So, and it's been a while since I played, but I believe the lowest level is 4 of these cards.
Yes.
So you split the deck into 4 chunks.
Mm-hmm.
Each chunk gets 1 Pandemic card.
And you shuffle that chunk individually and then stack them together.
You stack them. You do not shuffle them all back together.
See, I was told to shuffle the Pandemic cards in and put them all together, and I assumed it meant shuffle all the cards in together after that.
Yeah, so we ran into it in a situation where within, I think, 4 or 5 cards, we hit 3 of the Pandemic cards, which basically destroys the world.
I made easy into hardcore.
Yeah, you can, like, as it stands, you can run into 2 of them back to back.
But not 3.
But not 3, like, there's no, you're not recovering from that. So, and in that game, like I said, it's all or nothing. It is interesting in that each person, you don't just have just a generic meeple. You actually take on a role, and each role has certain duties
And abilities.
yeah. So, and it's a difficult game. Like my sister and I are my older sister and I are very hardcore gamers, and we can beat the easy mode. I don't think we've actually managed to beat the middle mode and haven't even attempted hardcore mode. So, yeah, so that aside from if she lived closer, we'd consider getting the legacy version because I hear it's great. Legacy games are ones where as you play the game, you actually alter the components of the board game.
So the next time you play it, it's not the same.
Right. And you play through like a storyline. And so basically you get to play through it once, you know. And
there's literally legacy games where it tells you if you do something, you
destroy
the card.
Thing, yeah. And so yeah, so Pandemic has I think 2 seasons, and you got like a red box and a blue box, and there's a bunch of stuff we got. So that's a good one. Yeah. So right, if you want Euro style games, those are definitely good places to start. Trying to think of any others that are commonly available. Now, ideally, you go to a game store and ask around there.
Yeah.
They'll have a much greater selection. But if you're stuck with like a Walmart or Target, they, like I said, they should have at the very least Settlers and Carcassonne usually. So,
but you can find pretty much all games on Amazon.
Yeah. I mean, so obviously, you can turn online to find some of these.
I've had to.
And that's one tiny problem you occasionally run into with Euro games is suddenly they're out of print, or you can't get them in the United States, or something like that.
Or what's kept you from buying a lot of the Settler of Catan expansions that's come out recently. Different editions have different artwork.
Yeah, Settlers of Catan was made by Mayfair Games, and they sold the rights to another company. So the other company made a new edition with new artwork, and I don't want to have to repurchase 4 base games and 4 5 and 6 player expansions and then all the new stuff. So I'm probably good with what I've got.
Yep.
So
until we get to properly 3D printing and we make the 3D tiles for everything.
Yeah, well, I thought about splurging and buying the 3D version because might as well just go all in.
Yeah.
Because they are going to do the expansions too, and the 3D sets. So.
Nice.
So yeah, instead of just sinking $50 into it, why not sink like $1,000 into it? That makes perfect sense, right, folks?
Yeah. That
if I do somehow decide that is really a good idea, I'll review the unboxing for it. It's probably not going to happen.
Probably
not unless I find them on clearance somewhere. Ticket to Ride is a Euro style game that has sold tens of millions of copies.
And you can't find it at Walmart.
Yeah, that one you can find at Walmart and Target. Typically, Target has both the American and the European one, and that's a matter of the board. The American one, it's America, it's Southern Canada. I don't think it goes into Mexico. Mexico's obviously there on the board though, because it's actually geographically there. Europe, the board's different because it's Europe, obviously. But I have the 20th anniversary version, and that one goes all the way into England's on one side, and I think Ukraine is as far as it goes on the other side. So, and into Russia and a few places. So
wow.
Presumably no update to close down those particular rail lines connecting each other. But yeah, also it's in 1910, so you're talking steam-powered trains. But that one, the deluxe versions of those games come with much nicer little components instead of cheap plastic little trains. They come with they actually have specific cargo on them, and the whole things are colored, and they each come with a little tin, and it's pretty fantastic looking. Definitely glad I bought that.
Nice.
And then if you want that, the incredibly small version, there's like Ticket to Ride New York, San Francisco, and London. It has like a little $20 version. If you buy that, you're like, hey, this is good. I just wish it was bigger. Then buy the America or Europe version. Those are the base games. If you have either one of those, you can buy any of the expansions. Like I've got one that has a map for Japan that has bullet trains on it. And the other side is, it's France or Italy. I believe it's Italy. And it has to deal with like ferries, boats going back and forth, stuff like that. And there's like one for India. There's one for Switzerland. They have bizarre combinations. Like one is France and the Old West, I think. And so each board has like special rules on them. So if you buy the base game, you want to branch out, check into that. I think Ticket to Ride Germany is also considered a base game. I just don't see them listed very often. And then the Nordic countries is specifically designed for 2 to 3 players because the main game is designed for 3 to 4 players. It has, once you play the game, you'll understand. It's kind of difficult to explain. It has to do with like the number of tracks and stuff like that. So, anyway, those are the commonly available options. If you're interested in looking into those, and we will hopefully have some videos that will actually play the games at some point because I own most of those. So.
We just need to find the right time to be able to get together for an extended amount of time to do so.
And people that are cool with being filmed.
Yes.
So, yeah. And, yeah. So, that's in somewhat longer form than I anticipated.
As is our usual.
Yes, this is a recurring theme here. This is why, as you can probably tell, we don't script these videos. It just kind of happens.
We really should start looking into scripts.
Yes.
I think they would help us.
We are going to, some people have commented in, I don't think actually in the comments, but in person to us. And so there are some types of videos, because we do know that people don't have 45 minutes to watch some of these. So we are going to also make
45 minutes to watch a video that we could have covered in 10 to 15.
No, this one required an explanation. I mean,
Some of our others, though.
Yeah, some of our others not so much, but so we will be making some shorter videos on topics that we can blow right through, because this being YouTube, we know everyone loves a good top 10 list. And well, there's all kinds of things.
We'll surely get off track and expand it to top 20 and 30.
There's all kinds of things that we like that can be composed in list format that we can blow right through in like 3 times the amount of time it should really take.
Yep. Also, we're geeks. We love lists.
Yeah. So, yeah, Chad, any other like clarifications, examples, anything you want to add to any of that? Or
not really, no.
Are there any American style games you actually do like?
There's one that we've played once that I did like.
What's that?
Warhammer 40k Relic.
Ah, you mean Talisman?
No, Warhammer 40k Relic. That's exactly what it said on the box.
Yeah, but the other box that it stole everything from says Talisman.
Look, I don't know what to tell you, but
I don't know if that is an American style game.
you have the chance. You have that's competitive.
Yeah, if it is a Euro style game, it does not fit the mold. However, it's not a bad game. Like I have Talisman. I think it's a decent game.
I actually do like playing Risk when the rules are followed properly. Don't give the guy who wins the combat another go.
Yeah, no. Why would you do that?
Because it was in the rule book of the one we played, and we're like, yeah, that looks good.
Yeah.
My dad and brother will not play Risk with me anymore.
Yeah, I haven't played Risk. I've only played Risk like once or twice, and it took forever to know anything we resolved who won. So
the way you resolve who won in that is who has more territory at the end. So
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I think it came down to, like, Jesus, this is taking forever. Let's just stop. There's no end in sight.
That's when you count who all the territories up and.
Sure. But, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of hard pressed to think of one that I like. Assuming Talisman counts, Talisman's okay. Yeah, other than Talisman, though.
There's not many other American style games I like. Monopoly I used to think is fun, but now that I've played other games, it's like, well, yeah, I could see its issues.
Yeah.
Sorries and troubles, just like,
I mean, Trivial Pursuit's okay, but that's because I know a lot about a lot. So,
but not what they're asking.
That's definitely you're playing that one to win, because if you're not having fun, because you're not getting the questions right and you're clearly losing. So that's a tricky one. And I have a Star Wars Trivial Pursuit that no one will play against me, because their only hope that they have is the category where it's things like who was the second grip on the Battle of Hoth, which I couldn't hope to answer.
Who was Harrison Ford's hairdresser?
Yeah, like that category, nothing. Every other category, I'm going to get every single question right almost.
And I probably will as well.
Yeah. I mean, you and Jim should play someday. That'd be interesting.
Because lore-wise, I think we all are pretty good. It's the behind the scenes, like there's some behind the scenes stuff that I know.
Yeah.
Simply from watching special features on my prequel and original series 6-box set.
Scrabble's okay.
Never really played it.
I don't like playing against my mom and my sister, because they've learned all the like 1 and 2 letter words. There's a lot more than you think there are.
2.
No, there's a lot.
T-O, 2.
No, I know. There's
And no, a lot's 4 letters.
It's the kind of things that you pick up doing lots of like crossword puzzles and playing lots of Scrabble. Although I was able to get her to admit that her dictionary set, which between them are roughly this thick, is not comprehensive, where I found a word that in fact is not in there.
Oh?
Quasar. Took me about 5 minutes. And I was just like, I'll find something, like, because these books were printed at year X, and I'm like, no, I just need something that involves more advanced science that came out afterwards, and it's not going to be in here.
Quasar and Pulsar.
Yeah. So, and she's like, what's that? So, it's this, explain it to her. So yeah, that was a fun moment. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it on the American game front. I mean, Yahtzee's okay to pass the time, but it is pure luck.
Yeah, pure
As
luck.
long as you understand that, then it's okay to pass the time. If you're waiting for something else important to happen, like paint dry.
Or a new board game to go on sale.
Yes, or to show up like it's 10 houses away and they're not quite there yet. So anyway, so that's the maiden episode here, and depending on future episodes, we'll hopefully have like some visual aids. I thought about bringing some stuff, but since this was more of a conceptual thing, I don't, without really spreading a bunch of crap out here and making this a much longer video, I don't really think anything would have helped. Maybe showing you the peoples and like some of the worker placement stuff.
But then again, we're sitting an inch or two farther apart than usual, and we have this blank space that we can experiment with at the moment.
Yeah, depending on how my editing skills level up by the time I edit this, maybe there will be something here. You never know.
Like,
so if there's been something here throughout this whole video, you're probably wondering why we're talking like total crazy people right now.
yes, it's because the thought of anything being here was conceptual at the start of the video.
I like how you brought that back around there, Chad. That was good. You should be in sales or something.
No.
All right. Well, all right. You know what it's time for? This is YouTube, so here it comes. If you liked what you saw, hit the like button, subscribe, share it around, throw some comments at us, good, bad, or otherwise.
Criticism's always welcome.
Yeah. Prefer to be constructive, but I can't stop you from being not constructive.
Yep.
Just constructive criticism isn't really going to help anybody. So, but it's the internet.
It helps you feel better.
Yeah, you might get a cathartic moment out of it, but it's not going to help us improve anything. Probably not. I don't know.
It won't.
So anyway, thank you folks for tuning in, and hopefully you'll tune into some more videos down the line, and keep an eye on this segment. If there's anything kind of like what we talked about here, or what we talked about towards the intro that you might want to see us talk about, throw it out there in the comments. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah, if there's any concepts in video games, movies, board games, anything like that you want us to touch on and explain a little bit, we're more than welcome to in these segments.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to open it up a little farther there, Chad. If there's some scientific concepts you want us to talk about, we'll go for it. We're not scientists. It will not be accurate, but we'll make a good guess at it.
100 subscribers, and we'll do the concepts on magnets.
Yes, I'll explain how magnets work.
But we gotta get to 100 subscribers first.
Yeah, so tell your friends.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks again, folks, and we will be seeing you.
See you later.